Hello world, welcome to the first episode of Narrative Quest. I am your host, Anthony Diaz. This is a show about creativity. It's a show about art, music, poetry, writing, acting, dancing. I wanted to make a show about how people are pursuing their passions and maybe help others figure out how to tap into their own passions and tell their story. Welcome again to Narrative Quest. My first guest is my lovely and talented wife, Kailey Diaz, the owner and artist of Kailey's Art and Oddity Shoppe. I was finally able to try out my new recording equipment for this, so hey, enjoy the show. Well, hello. Welcome to a brand new show that I am making because I want to spend more time trying to make it as a as an influencer and all that great stuff. Hopefully, all the money bags will fall on my head. No, I'm just playing. This is actually a brainchild, a project that I want to do for a very long time. This is Narrative Quest. My name is Anthony Diaz. I am your host. I am your host.
You're my other thing.
Yeah, this is a show where it's just you can talk about anything you want. This is a unscripted interview style where it's just two people just shooting the shit and talking about art and talking about music and talking about whatever the guest is a specialist in. And my first guest, again, is my lovely wife, Kailey Diaz. She's the owner of KAOS, Kailey's Art and Oddity Shoppe. You've been doing this for 6 months now.
Yes.
And we've actually done, see, how many shows have we done? We've done
a lot at this point. We've got a couple that we're regulars at now. So it's been about 6 months. We've got shows that are already on the books coming up. It's super exciting. Anthony you've done a couple shows on your own on my behalf at this point too. So before we get started and say nice things about me, because you're my husband and my number one hype guy, doing the podcast, but like you've definitely like shown up at every event and done events when I was sick because I had already committed and like paid my vendor spot, and like you go out there and sell this stuff and come home. And so thank you before we get started.
Yeah, I think I think doing those shows solo, it definitely does bring out a different person. I kind of think I have another personality as a carnival barker, just trying to get people
I tell you, you could be in sales. As someone who was in sales for quite a while, I think you would make a killing in sales. And oh my God, those office ladies would love you.
I couldn't do it. It's because of my hair. I have long hair now. People come.
No, you're so polite. Everything is like, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am, yes, sir, oh, yes, no, sir. And you're so polite. Like those office ladies would like eat you alive.
So let's get
anyway. Quit telling me how hot I am. Let's talk about you.
It's because I know how hot I am. Let's get into the art. I have the unique ability to be firsthand, outside looking into the process of art.
Is that what we call it?
It is a process.
It is a process.
Because I actually, we've been together for 10 years, married for 6.
Mm-hmm.
And I have already been exposed to the corporate painting side of the house, where it was a staged a stage event.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we're allowed to even say the name.
You're allowed to say some of it, but we'll just say it's a paint and sip, because I worked at a couple studios, and that's really just kind of like the general term for all of them. They're BYOB studios. And it's funny, like, just as soon as you said that we've been together 10 years, been married 6. My entire art career has happened within the duration of our relationship. And I don't think I always think about it that way, because so what I'm doing now, I guess, to start off the episode with an explanation. So I have KAOS, which is Kailey's Arts and Oddity Shop. I mainly focus on repurposing items. So I upcycle, I use thrift store things, estate sale things. Hey, I cleaned out my grandma's attic. Do you want this box of junk things? I take all of those things. I'll like strip out the photos or the old art, things that need to be discarded. I create new things for them, or I'll sculpt onto them. I use an epoxy clay. So it's a weatherproof, waterproof plastic finish. And so like I'll sculpt onto some of the pieces, just having fun, like doing all of those things. And now I got distracted, but I'm not going to give up. What was my original point, Anthony? You're so cute. I was just looking at you.
Going into how you upcycle things, and
there was a point before that, so you forgot it too. This is what happens. We haven't like just sat and like looked in each other's eyes for like, it feels like a while. You're so cute.
What would you say is your largest obstacle when you are coming up with an idea of maybe like a new piece?
My biggest obstacle is always myself. It's always myself. And I guess that, which prompted me to remember what we were just talking about, that my entire artistic career has happened within the duration of our relationship. We talked about paint and sip, because the obstacle has always been myself. So my parents are historical artists. If anybody listening to this has come up to our vendor booth, you've probably heard the story. Like, my dad's a blacksmith. My mom does fiber arts.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up doing pre-16th century European art with my family. And that was their job, but that was never my job. I ran away from home. I waited tables. I like bartended for a minute. I worked at surf shops. Like, I was just the crazy black sheep that didn't follow into that for a minute. So then I just told myself, well, I wasn't the artist. Like, I was my own obstacle, like, even then. And so I never pursued art in any form. And I would just like doodle occasionally and pin stuff to my walls, because I was an edgy, cool, like 21-year-old girl with her own place. So I had like nude women and like goblin-y creatures and stuff. But then we went into painting with the I think it was actually Tipsy Canvas.
It's Tipsy Canvas. I think you are okay saying the name of the company.
But I faked my way into that job. I lied a little bit. I mean, it wasn't a lie. I just didn't have as much experience as I may have like let it seem like I did.
But here's the interesting thing about your.
We'll make sure that we tell this story very gingerly, because I just want to make sure that everything is right.
Your interview process, and they had you do a painting, correct?
So they had me bring in a couple paintings. So
now I saw you do those paintings from scratch.
I did them from scratch, but I 100% Googled easy acrylic painting.
Right.
And like how to do them. And so I sketched them out. So like it was my hand that sketched them, but it wasn't my unique concept or my unique idea. It was just like I needed a couple quick paintings, and I picked some stuff up at the dollar store in Joann's and went home and made these paintings, because I just thought it'd be a super cool job, like to work at a studio where like you get to drink beer while you teach people to paint, because, you know, like it's one of those, you're not supposed to, it's against the rules. Like I don't, you know, whatever, people break rules all the time. So I just thought it'd be a cool job. I don't know if I expected to get hired, but then I got an email back saying, hey, cool, send us some pictures. I was like, cool. So I made those pieces, sent the pictures. So like, cool, bring them in with you. And I remember posting on Facebook, like, oh my God, like my living room looks like an art gallery. And they were just the shittiest acrylic paintings that I probably ever did. I sold 2 of them, but I think I ended up selling all 3.
I think you did sell all 3.
So it was just one of those.
Was that the catalyst to be like, I did it once? Because at the time, you weren't just an artist. At the time, I
was waiting tables.
Yes.
And I was waiting tables. I did the paint and sip all throughout, waiting tables in another retail job. I also did it all throughout my pregnancy with our youngest son. And actually, super shout out to the bosses at the studio because they actually let me work full term and let me pretty much make my own hours after that. And then I got to bring in the newborn to the studio and work. And they were like, yeah, you can breastfeed. We don't care. Like, take whatever time you need. So I went to work, put up a pack and play. Baby was hungry. I plugged him in. When he was sleepy, he went back down and I got to do my work and get paid. So shout out to them because they're awesome people. That was really long-winded. But the whole thing of that whole thing was that my biggest obstacle is always myself. I wouldn't do anything because I was always in my own way. When I got with you and I was interested in that position, I was not going to do it. It was one of those, we send each other stupid stuff on Facebook Marketplace. Like, we're not going to buy it, but hey, I want you to look at it. It was like, hey, look at this job listing. And you're like, do it. And I was like, well, I can't do it. And you're like, just do it. And I was like, I can't do it. And then I did it. And like, look at where we're at now. And the same thing with quitting my job. 6 months ago, I was really unhappy. My mental health was tanking. I was not fitting into the corporate world. And
and real quick, you were on a corporate job and not just waiting. You weren't waiting tables. Or anything.
This was I had an amazing opportunity kind of fall into my lap. That got me a corporate sales position. It was a commission sales position. It was with a great company. I have nothing against the company. I did leave them last year, but it was just a lot of it was circumstantial, but I also just feel like I was not the right fit for a corporate job. Like, my strengths, my skills, my abilities, like, I am the square peg that's not fitting through the hole.
Right.
And the more I kept trying to like conform and force myself into that, the more I could like kind of feel myself slipping away. And I think that you saw that happening as well, which I'm not sure what that was like to witness from an outside perspective. But it got to the point where when I started making things and posting them on Facebook and like, hey, look what I made this thing. And then the private requests start coming in for like, hey, how much is that? Hey, can you make another one? Hey, can it be blue? Hey, can you do it by this day? And I'm like, oh shit, like this is something I can actually do.
Was that the catalyst, like validating point that, yeah, I think I can quit my job and be a full-time artist?
I think the biggest, if there had to be a catalyst, like a true catalyst point, I would say the confidence catalyst was the keychains. And I know that that's the common story that we tell at our vendor booths. And it's a great opportunity for us to also like shout out Michael and Kim over at Mystic Dragon Games.
So we have friends, and Michael actually officiated our
lies. We have no friends.
Officiated our wedding, and he owns a small gaming company, and he had asked you to make these Dragon Eye keychains. Mm-hmm. I think after you had made one.
So I had made I'd made a couple little like charms, and I'd posted on Facebook, and I was like, hey, if I was going to make some charms and they were, going to be like $10 a piece, like who would be interested in them kind of thing. And I'd made my own keychain, So I'd made myself a little spooky eyeball, and all of that, like those posts were getting started, but it was before I was actually doing a business. It was just like, hey, like who would be interested? And the post wasn't a hey, place your order post. It just kind of became that. And like I got some of them out, like some of them I have made, and I'm like, honestly, I'm just giving to them to the people. They're my friends. That wasn't a business page, like their presence.
Right.
But having that, hey, I really like what you did. Could you do it a little bit different? And I was like, well, I can. Let me see when I have time, because I was working a lot and I was stressed when I'd get home from work, and it was like the time that it needed to feel myself again. And then it's time to put the kids down, and then it's time to like, spend time with my husband, and then it's like time to go to bed, and then it's time to restart the cycle all over. When am I going to get these keychains made? But I went ahead, made them a priority, made several prototypes before I actually got to one. So it was a good experience to know that like my first try is not always going to be a good one. It wasn't that I had a super easy sailing on my first assignment. I had to fix it several times. Finally got to a good place, and he's like, cool, we want you to be part of like our small artist team for small batch merch. And I was like, wait, you want to buy like more than one of these? And he's like, yeah, we want to buy like a grouping of them.
Right.
And so I got his made up with his logo, and they're gorgeous. They're available on the Mystic Dragon website. And then I've made some myself without, of course, the logo, and they're one of our like most popular items for sure.
Yeah.
So they're hand painted on glass cabochons. I paint them in reverse on the glass, and then they're encased into the epoxy clay. So they just go into like this little metal bezel, which is the outside ring. So I hand sculpt it, hand paint it. They're super cute, one of a kind, and they've got little glitter bits and little metallic bits or little shine in there, so they kind of have like a lifelike little glint to them.
So the majority of your art pieces are small. There's no like giant canvas pieces.
Not yet.
No. But the majority of them have to deal with frame, repurposed frames, alcohol inks. You make not specialized. They're unique bookmarks, so each one isn't exactly the same.
Yeah.
Do you have an idea of like the roadmap of where you want to be in like the next 6 months, as far as the complexity of your art, or how large some pieces may be?
So I know those are things that I think we've kind of talked about. I think you and I really even haven't talked about those goals directly a whole lot. So in the next 6 months, I think up until this point, I've proven to myself that I can do certain things. I know that I can make like a good enough amount of art in a short period of time, or in a short enough period of time to flip for vendor events. And like once I've kind of proven to myself that I can do something, like that's great, I can do that. But then we talk really openly about ADD in our household.
Mm-hmm.
And so as soon as that dopamine hit isn't there anymore, I have to take a new craft. I have to try something new. We definitely follow where we call it dopamining. Like it is me mining for dopamine, and like I need something to give me that hit or I'll lose interest altogether.
And right now it's crocheting.
So my mom is in town. Currently the weather is awful everywhere. So she was in for the holidays, and she was fortunate enough to be able to stay with us a little bit longer, so she didn't have to get on the icy roads up north. So while she was in town, I was like, cool, you know how to crochet, and she's got looms back home. She does fiber arts. I was like, I need to know the basics. So she like kind of showed me a couple things. The way that I learned, I couldn't have her show me everything, so I had her show me some really basic stuff, and then I just like did that over and over and over and over and cussed a lot, and then figured some stuff out, and now I'm making a blanket, and I've already made a couple other little things.
That is one thing that I will say that I noticed is when you have a certain idea, and let's say you want to do a brand new, I don't know, let's say a brand new jellyfish piece.
Yeah.
and using different mediums now. What I've noticed is that you will not spend hours of research trying to learn how to do it. You'll just take one bit of it and then just figure the rest of the shit out.
So I've got a couple theories on it. And I have found that if I do extensive research before I try something artistically, it comes out very much not anything that looks like me or like what I wanted to make. Because like I haven't really settled on what a style is that I'm in yet. Like I'm really in my infancy of being an artist, and it's still foreign to say that I'm an artist. I've still got like that imposter syndrome that's really happening. But let's see how to say it.
I will I will say that it's pretty incredible how you are able to even do that. Because for me, if I were to want to say, hey, you know what, I want to do a single pane comic in the style of, I don't know, of Larson, those Far Side comics.
Yeah, the Larson.
You know, if I would have took like one simple video, 5-minute video, and say, okay, this is how you do the face, there's no way I would have created the rest of his style. I think you, on the other hand, if you were to take 5 minutes of seeing it, you would have already figured out how to do everything.
I don't know if I could do everything. I think I could at least get to the point where somebody could be like, oh, okay, that's kind of like the Larson thing. Like, I think I could at least get recognizable, but maybe that's also me being my own obstacle again. Like, I'm always my worst critic. I will pull things out of our inventory boxes while we're loading up and like, that can't go yet. That's not ready. And it absolutely could. Like, you 100% proved me wrong recently at a market about an item that I was like, no, I don't want to put that item out yet. Like, it's going to be this price when it's finished, but I ran out of time and I didn't get to finish X, Y, Z. I had my list. And you were like, okay, well, I'm just going to set it on the back then. And that was one of the events that you were working on your own. And so then you were like, oh yeah, well, I sold it for that price. And I told them all, that there was more that you were going to do to it if they wanted to reserve it. And they were like, no, we want it as is. I'm like, what? Why am I doing all this extra if nobody wants it? Like, which I think is I do want a certain quality out there. So I'm not upset that I'm putting extra steps in, but I also need to kind of get out of my own way a little bit.
And that was just a one piece of art that was, I think it was just scratched.
We had scratched it on the way in. There were so because we do arts and oddities, I have a lot of pieces that have skulls and bones. I have antlers and horns.
Let's get into oddities, because
so we dropped an antler on the dice box. It was an octopus dice box. That was the piece.
So the oddity section, the oddity side of house, is there a path for that as well? Because right now the oddity stuff sold huge and terrific. And
I guess I didn't even answer your 6-month question, did I? But yeah, our oddities are definitely doing well. There are other oddity places here in town. We're not the only ones that are doing that, or I'm not the only one that's doing that.
Right.
And I've had the pleasure of meeting a couple of the other folks here in town, and they're all super sweet. And I just want to make sure that I say that, because when it's such a niche community, like there's not a lot of people doing oddity stuff. Like if I'm ever at the same place that I see like some of the other folks set up at, like I'm 100% over there. Like, oh my gosh, I love your stuff. Like I just want to, I love all the vendor folks that I've met so far. So I just want to give them so much credit, because they've been such a welcoming group as like a new baby vendor.
And what defines an oddity piece?
So for me, oddity, it's not just that it's going to be like, ooh, it's gross. It's bones and it's mandibles or it's bugs. All of those things are not oddities, but that is not all of oddities.
Right.
So oddities sometimes they're just downright spooky, creepy stuff. Like I've got some dolls that I know are going to be coming out at some point. Sometimes I find like these really weird old antique like postcards or like those old photos. I actually just got a few new boxes in from my super awesome friend Michelle, and she's got some spooky frames and stuff that she found for me and she just sent over. So I've got some spooky stuff going in there. So sometimes I'll have items that maybe I haven't arted on that are still in frames, but we always make sure we're really transparent on what the medium is, whether or not it's like an addition to, or if it's completely original piece or things like that. So I don't want anybody to think that they're showing up and getting
like a jar of like pig's feet or something.
I mean, I have raccoon teeth in jars. I do have some spooky jars because you know what? My spooky girl's got to have a place to get spooky stuff. Okay.
Yeah. And what's surprising is during the shows, some people will flock over to that small little section of oddities.
It makes my heart sing every single time. And like I call it squeeing. Like I think I squee at you every time it happens. It's like squee. But every time it just like gives me shivers. Whenever we are set up at a vendor event, we live in Texas. We live in a very conservative area. Having arts and oddities at these events is not something that's always there. Are there artists there? Yes. Yes, every time. There's always artists at art markets.
Mm-hmm.
They're not always pictures of skulls or pictures of like rib cages or like owls and bats and like just whatever my spooky ADD interest is that week that I'm making stuff. And it's definitely not always like mushrooms growing out of raccoon skulls and cloche domes. So whenever these like weird little kids are walking around because their super conservative parents dragged them out to one more quilt and blanket event, and then they see the weirdo girl with the green hair and the septum ring across the way, they get so excited. And it makes me so happy because like when I was younger, like my parents weren't the conservative type, but we lived in a conservative area.
Right.
And like how fucking happy and excited would I have been to have been like, oh my gosh, there's weirdos like me. These kids don't even all like they usually do buy something that's never like, you know, big, huge amounts. Like we know that those aren't conversations that are leading to like clearing our tables. But I love having a space that is so obviously like welcoming and accepting, like the gays, the theys, everyone is welcome at our table. And it makes me so happy that they know that and they like gravitate towards us. And like there was a kid at the last show who asked if we would like adopt them because we were going to be like the coolest parents.
Yeah. So we've always established that, you know, our house is always a safe space. Our shows are always a safe space. So like, you're right. Whenever we do see those kids, and we can say kids because we're old. And when they come by and then they look at the skull or they look at the bone or they look at the octopus sculpted on a candlestick or something, and they just want to just stand there and not move and just talk.
Yeah.
Like that's cool because what it does is that it speaks volumes to what a piece of art or a piece that through somebody else's eyes looks at and just like, okay, that's just a skull. But to them, it's much more than just a skull on a honeycomb or a skull that's mounted on a piece of driftwood. It's what it is. It's a story, or it's something that they usually find in lyrics of a obscure band that nobody listens to.
Yeah.
But when an artist is expressing themselves, and then they see that piece and like, I kind of understand what this means or what this is supposed to represent.
Yeah.
And to somebody else, I'm like, well, it's just a fucking piece of skull. Like, no, it's to them, like it's not. And when they're there and they're talking about it, that's what I think that's what's the coolest part about doing those shows.
I think I've got a lot to learn still in the art world. So like I'm self-taught for a lot of things, but I'm learning how to do like emotion a little bit more and like a little bit more like emotion expression with like colors and things like that. But for right now, like I would say that my style is very safe still, like as I'm practicing and branching out with like different mediums and different styles and I'm learning all the things like, but I love when people want to talk to me when they buy the stuff. Like, and I know some people just are like, they just want to meet a small artist because they feel good. And, like they're just buying it. They don't care. Like, it's fine. But there are people who really do care and like buy the pieces for specific reasons.
Yeah.
And like, I think about those paintings sometimes. Like, there's one painting in particular, like, I just picture where it hangs. And I don't know these people. I don't know their names. And it was at my very first show. And she was just so excited for the piece. And it was a blackbird. It was like looked like a raven, kind of a crow. Look, to be fair, it wasn't totally anatomically correct, but it was a blackbird, and there were lots of purples and blues in the feathers, and I was just really proud of the colors on it. I was just like, oh, like you can like they just look so shiny. And she came up and she's like, we just moved into our first home. We just bought our first home, and I made friends with the blackbird in the back, and like I'm trying to train him to bring me stuff. And she's like out there every day. And her husband was telling like these ridiculous stories about her. Pretty sure it's a grackle. It's one of those like icky blackbirds at the HEB parking lot, but she has one. And so she's like, we bought the house and I think the grackle brought me, or she said the bird, but like, she's like, I think the bird brought me something. Mm-hmm. Pretty sure the husband just dropped something on the porch. But she just was like so in love with the piece because of what it meant to her. And like I just picture it hanging like by her window in her kitchen, like with the grackle outside, like just like, what the fuck? That doesn't even look like me. But like I just think about those things, and like when people want to hear the stories of like what I was doing when I made the pieces, or like how I was feeling or why I made the piece, like those always just like stick out to me, and like always just, I don't know, it's just so validating. Even if I don't make a ton of money at events, like of course like money's the goal, like money's the reason we're there, it's business. But even on events where maybe I don't make as much, like situations that have like the kids that come up, or those story transactions, or that genuine appreciation, even if like people are like, hey, I love what you're doing, or like they really got to like share an important story that was inspired by either a piece that I made or like the D&D dice, and they're like, oh yeah, like they get to talk about their friends that maybe they haven't seen since pre-COVID, and those things are fulfilling. It's not financially fulfilling, but it is very like emotionally like a very like soul fulfilling,
right,
kind of deal.
What would you say to somebody who is like on the fence of wanting to pursue something like the vendor circuit and art in general?
I would say if you are able to do it in a way that does not jeopardize your health, happiness, and family, then you should do it. And I say that because like our specific situation, like this wasn't something that we like very lightly or flippantly decided to do. It was something that we had to have like some serious talks about whether we were financially going to be able to do that. Like we have those talks now, like, are we going to be able to financially continue? Because like some months aren't great months and some months are awesome months.
Let's talk about that real quick too.
Okay. I wasn't sure how much you wanted to talk about our personal life.
Well, no, not the personal life. The good months, the good shows, the bad months, the bad shows. Like I don't think there are bad shows. It's just sometimes it's not marketed to where the foot traffic we need are there.
Okay, so I would like to rephrase, like, and correct. Like, when I say bad, I've never had a bad experience. I've never had a show where people were disrespectful. I've never had a problem where people were rude. Like, I specifically, when I say bad, I meant low foot traffic.
And money. We need money.
Well, it's just foot traffic leads to sales. I've never had, like, I've genuinely am so appreciative that we've never had like obvious theft. We've never had like a bulk of things gone. And like, don't get me wrong, sometimes it can be difficult to keep track of some of the inventory because all the pieces are so unique. But I don't think that we've had anything significant. I'm sure that there's a small item,
maybe one or two,
I
like
mean,
keychains,
like
probably.
If that's you, go fucking steal from Walmart. Don't steal from small businesses. I'm just kidding. But what were we talking about?
Good shows, bad shows.
Good shows, bad shows. Yeah, bad show just means low foot traffic. Every show I've been to has been very friendly, welcoming, great.
Was there always or not always, but was there an expectation for the shows to begin with?
So I think there's always a basic expectation. Like when I go to certain events, I know that foot traffic's going to be high, and I know what my average is starting to look like. So in the beginning, when I was setting numbers as expectations, they were completely like arbitrary. I had no basis. I had no concept for how much I would be making. I didn't know like what people were going to be interested in. So I made like this wide variety of like a couple random things. And that's actually gone pretty well for us so far. I don't know if it's a scarcity market issue where it's like, hey, there's only 3 available, so I better get it now. But the way that my brain works, I rather enjoy doing batches of things in like 4 or 5. And then I can go on and do the next thing, which goes back to the dopamining we talked about before. So like right now I'm crocheting a lot. I'm going to make like 3 things and I'm never going to want to crochet again. And then I'm going to paint and I'm going to do gouache because I have my gouache paints and they're ready to go. And now I have my desk ready to gouache paint. So we're going to do gouache paint for 2 weeks. And then we're never going to do gouache again. And then we're going to go on to acrylic. And then we're going to go back to sculpting. And then you know what we're going to do?
Go back to
we're going to start crocheting
again.
And that is what our life is going to be. So I love that people love my ADD as much as I hate my ADD because they're pretty high levels. But it's different. I just like making things in batches.
Done, and that's fine, and that's
fun.
And that's awesome. Especially being the person who is firsthand experiencing the process. Because it is a process.
It's a mess. It's a process.
It's a process.
Hey, I'm getting so much better.
Oh no, like it is getting a whole lot better. But from somebody who is looking through I wouldn't say a non-artistic eye, because
you're a better like drawer than I am. 1,000%. And I've said that our entire relationship.
I appreciate that.
You are able to visualize things in a way that I'm not able to visualize things, which I've been able to kind of change the way I can visualize, but you can like just be like, I want to make this, and like it's an apple with a white background. So you're like, I want to make this, and you make it happen. Like I'm like, I want to make an apple, and I can kind of see it, but then I'm like too focused on the white background because it's actually a shade of blue. And then I have to do the apple, but I need all the colors. And what are those yellow spots? Oh my gosh, you can't use that color yellow. But then I need purple, so I can maybe do like a little bit of an under, like they're different, but you are a better drawer than I will ever be. And I can't conceptualize things the way that you do. So I just want you to have some credit, because I'm going to make you do some of my sketches for me.
Sure.
I'm just kidding.
That's
we do some collaboration pieces.
And as someone who is looking in a different set of eyes going into it, I think that you are producing some fantastic pieces of work. My favorite so far has not sold, and I'm surprised it hasn't sold yet.
Which one is your favorite?
So far, one of my favorite pieces you've done is the Hawksbill turtle.
Oh, I don't know what's wrong with him. He's been around,
and it's a perfect piece.
I'm not going to say it's a perfect piece, But I think I'm going to work on them some more. But this is my favorite thing about pieces that don't sell is that I can take them home and do more to
Yeah,
them.
and you can just take them off.
Like,
but I don't understand how.
I think his highlights are too bright.
I don't know if it's the frame or because the frame works with it well.
I thought so. I thought it complemented the color of the turtle. But no, I made some turtles. We were doing an event in Rockport, and I try and make sure that I ask all my customers, especially customers that don't buy anything. So I guess technically my non-customers. I'm like, okay, like, you know, you came into this, you came in, but you didn't see anything. Is there any kind of stuff that you'd be interested in seeing me do? Because I don't know if people don't tell me. So I'm like, okay, look, I have a ton of jellyfish because last time I was here, I sold out of jellyfish. People came back and were like, hey, I'd like more jellyfish. And I was like, I don't have any jellyfish because I make, they're all original pieces. So the next time I came, I had a ton of jellyfish. And then people are like, well, I wanted octopus.
Right.
So I'm like, so I'm always asking people like, hey, what do you want to see? Like, what should go out here next? Like, what's the who's down? Who's next?
And the other one too, the other one that I'm very surprised it hasn't sold yet is the moth.
The death head moth.
Yeah, the one that has a figure on it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know why that one hasn't sold.
That one got more attention on social media too. I expected that one to sell. Like, and I mean, I really don't think it's
I wonder if people see it, go to an event, and then like
I wonder if they think it's more expensive than it is.
Well, I mean,
it's $30.
I mean, it could. They could happen.
I was like, it's in a fancy frame. Maybe they just assume it's going to be more. Because I mean, I'll be honest. Like, I understand that I could be making a lot more if I did prints. I am not at a point that I feel good about making prints.
Right.
I haven't made pieces that I am like, I want this forever to be the Kailey Diaz experience, you know, with the Kailey Diaz signature in the corner.
Right.
I think that I will end up making some bookmark prints of some of like my favorite jellyfish that I've done. But I think right now I'm still figuring out like that whole process of finding what I want to make my staple stuff.
Right. But you're having fun doing this though, right?
I'm having fun when my mental health is cooperating. I've had a couple little stressy times, but I think that that's got a lot to do with just like a big life transition. And I think you've been a really strong support through it. So, when we were talking about like good months, bad months, like what we meant by that and all of that, like I had a bad month and I just didn't make as much as I really thought I was going to. And it was my own fault. Like I didn't have the right inventory. And then that imposter syndrome starts to kick in. It's like, well, obviously you don't know like what you're doing. And then like, you're not really an artist. And then you can always be nicer to yourself, but it's hard to like make that happen. And like, I was just being really, really like inwardly ugly to myself. And then it just kind of spiraled. And then I wasn't booking shows or I was like missing deadlines because I was so caught up with like how upset I was over this bad month. And I think we're at a point now that kind of like that fog is lifted, that spiral's kind of ended, that I'm at a clarity point of like, okay, that's how it can be. And that's how we don't get to react, because I think I deserve myself a little bit of grace in learning like, okay, shit happens. You got to put on your big girl panties. You got to deal with it. You can't have that little self-saboteur like taking control and like making you so sad that it's like things are hard and yeah, shit's going to be hard. That's, you quit your job. You chose your hard. I could work for somebody else and it could be harder. I could work for myself and it could be hard. And I chose to work for myself and for that to be hard.
Right.
So, yeah, we're just going to keep pushing through.
Yeah.
Maybe that got too personal. I don't know.
No.
I was like, I'm not shy about talking about mental health or like personal questions. So whatever you want public, you just ask me on a microphone late at night and I am here.
Well, it is late at night. And we have children who go to school tomorrow.
And cuddles to be had.
Indeed. Where can people find you?
Well, find me. You can find me on Instagram at _KAOS. That's KAOS _CC.
That's Instagram.
That's Instagram. Did I say that was Facebook?
No.
Okay, that's Instagram. Facebook, KAOS, KAOS, and then I spell out Kailey's, which is KAILEY. Kailey's Art and Oddity Shop. That's a PPE.
And the logo is the one with
it's a jackalope,
skull.
I love my jackalope. I'm gonna get him on a t-shirt.
Any last things before we end it?
Just thanks for having me. You know, I'm sorry if I was awkward. It's been a while since I've been on a microphone. I didn't know how to behave anymore. The setup's different.
It's nice though, right?
It's nice.
I love this thing. I got a brand new Rode Podcaster Pro 2 that I'm finally busting out for this brand new project, and it is a piece of work. I absolutely love it. It's all pretty colors and everything. It's actually kind of mesmerizing because I want to keep my eye on the levels.
Very cotton candy.
Yeah, because I want to keep my eyes on the levels. I was like, okay, what happens if I move too much, and then I can hear everything from the other mics. And then but I know that these are auto channeled, so like it'll go into two channels or two.
Okay, techie.
Well, it'll go into two different files, so I can crop and then I can edit later. But I don't want to do that. I want to keep it on one single one.
Oh my gosh, Anthony!
Because it'll be easier to produce later on post. And I was also thinking about like how many different subsets I can do on here, so it pre-levels whenever like someone is far away from the mic, because these mics can do that. It can.
Are you sponsored? Time out.
I hope.
Take a breath. Are you sponsored?
Dude, Rode, man, if you want to sponsor, man, I can use some help. But yeah, but this thing can do an amazing amount of just awesome shit, and I love this. I love this so much. But yeah, so thank you all for listening, and the first episode of Narrative Quest, and hopefully in the near future we'll have different artists, musicians, poets, writers. People who have interesting stories they want to tell. We'll bring them on, and we'll see what the story is.
All right.
Later, y'all.